I, Jane Sitaladua from the SN3 Block NB, and today I will be demonstrating on how to open and close sterile packs as well as adding and pouring into the sterile field. So let's get started. One of the responsibilities of the circulating nurse is to help the scrub nurse prepare the sterile field. It is important to remember that the circulating nurse is considered unsterile and must not touch any instruments that are considered sterile. Thus, proper handling of sterile instruments when preparing the sterile field must be followed in order to maintain its sterility. Before the procedure, it is important to do proper hand hygiene. After that, let's proceed on how to open and close a sterile package. In opening a sterile package, open the farthest flap first, then proceed in opening the side flaps and lastly pulling the last flap by grasping the corner. Do the same thing with the second layer of the package. However, use a picking forceps to open the second layer as it is considered sterile. Moving on with how to add supplies and pour solutions to the sterile field. It is important to remember these points when doing this procedure. Do not reach across the sterile field. Do not flip or toss objects in the sterile field. The 1-inch border around the sterile field is not considered sterile, and discard any of the outer wrapper from each sterile item being dropped. As I add sterile items, place them well within the sterile field. Unwrap the sterile items from its packaging, making sure not to disrupt its sterility. Gather the ends of the covering back around the wrist, forming a sterile cover for your hands. Make sure that the ends are not dangling loosely around the sterile field. The content is then put down or dropped by the circulating nurse or lifted upward by the assigned scrub nurse. When opening a commercial sterile package, flaps are pulled back to expose the content. Make sure that the material does not slide in the edges of the package since those areas are considered unsterile. Carefully drop the content into the sterile field or the assigned scrub nurse can also lift the content since it is still sterile. Small items can be dropped from 6 to 8 inches above the sterile field. However, for larger items, they can be put down carefully or with the use of a sterile picking forceps. When adding liquids to the sterile field, pour a small amount of the liquid to the waste receptacle. In pouring the liquids to the sterile basin, the circulating nurse only holds the lid cover over the basin and ensure that the label of the liquid should be facing upward to prevent damaging the label. Then pour it from 6 to 8 inches above the receiving basin. Make sure to pour the liquids carefully and avoid splashing. In closing the OR packs, close the inner wrapper first. Fold the nearest flap and then fold the side flaps. After that, close the farthest flap. Now, close the outer wrapper using a similar technique. Fold the nearest flap first and tie both side flaps. After that, fold and tuck the farthest flap of the package. Aftercare will then be followed.